And hey there, everyone. I'm Brian with Jenny Jar Digital, and today our topic is growing your sales during tough times. And I'm so glad I have right here beside me my good friend and business partner, Tom Powell. Tom, what's shaking?
Brian, what's shaking? Let me rephrase that question. What's happening, man?
What's
What's
happening?
happening? You talk about growing your sales through tough times. Like, pick a time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
today, yesterday, 2 weeks ago, probably a month from now,
yeah.
uh, all tough. All
So
tough.
that was one of my questions to you because you've been a business owner for over 25 years, correct?
I have.
So I'm sure you've seen some tough seasons along the way, and somehow you've managed to survive with your sales during those lean times.
Yeah,
So
certainly.
every entrepreneur can understand that.
Yeah, certainly. It was nothing I've done. God's been good to me despite myself. It's ready, fire, aim in my case. Hey, I can do something great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But what I wish I would have known 25 years ago is that you can't have sales without leads. And that's really where the concentration should be.
Yeah.
So we live and learn.
That's right. And speaking of God's blessings, did you ever go to Sunday school as a kid? I think I know the answer to this question.
I did. And I did the flannel graph and everything. Remember those things?
I remember those days.
Okay.
Well, I've got a Sunday school story that does tie in to the topic today and our guest. So I want to take you back real quick to like the 70s. And I was like 7 or 8 years old. And I had the world's greatest Sunday school teacher. His name was Mr. Herman Webster. And Mr. Herman, just such a kind man, probably in his 60s at the time, generous. He was always positive. He always had a good attitude, but he had one big problem. And that problem was me, because I was one of those mischievous little devils, always causing problems. And I think back to him now, and this guy must have put so much time into his lessons. And then I would come into the class. I know you didn't do this as a kid, Tom, because you were an angel.
Yeah,
but I would disrupt, and I would act out, and I would just be a jerk. And I'm embarrassed to even admit that. But something happened. Because Mr. Herman was the way he was, he just always stayed positive towards me. And he was patient with me. And I remember one time he pulled me to the side after one of these disastrous classes that I just ruined. And he said, "Brian, you had a tough day in class today, but I see something in you and I believe in you, and you're going to turn out to be a fine young man." Now, of course, I smirked when he said that, but it got somewhere in my heart. And he would say that over and over to me every week as I would disrupt or do something. "I believe in you, Brian." He had that positive mental outlook, that mindset. And something switched in me, because with those words, I didn't want to disappoint him. So I began to go to his class, and I wanted to be a star pupil because he thought that of me. And I stopped disrupting, and I started helping, all because of his words. Now, fast forward 10, 12 years later, I'm 17, 18 years old. And did your church ever do a teen Sunday when you were growing up? Like the teens are in charge of a service?
Oh, yeah.
Those can be dumpster fire services. Nobody knows what they're doing. And for whatever reason, they chose me to be the main speaker that day. I had never given a speech. I did not know anything about a sermon or a message. I was shaking in my boots. Literally, this was going to be a disaster. I knew it. And I can still remember standing behind the podium, heart beating out of my chest, getting my notes organized, what little notes there were. And I looked out, and guess who was sitting out there in the pew cheering me on?
I'm sure Webster was.
Mr. Herman Webster. And I can tell you, I can still remember it to this day, just seeing him for that split second, seeing that big smile on his face, it brought encouragement to me in that moment, because I'm thinking, there's a guy who believed in me when I was a complete idiot. Still am an idiot, but I was a complete idiot. And yet he's believing in me. And I believe it was his words to me and his love for me that continue to help me step through things. Now, what does that have to do with sales? What does that have to do with our guest today? I believe that when we talk about success with sales, it is more dependent on the mindset of the seller and the positive mindset of the seller than it is necessarily on the mindset of the buyer. I think when we start approaching sales with a positive attitude instead of a dread or drudgery, when we change how our mind thinks, and it will bring a new energy to what we have to do with our sales, because every business needs sales. And when I think about Mr. Herman and that type of personality, I think of our speaker today, our interview guest today, and her name is Susan Mann. And Susan has that infectious, enthusiastic, positive attitude. When you talk to her for more than 10 seconds, you can see it. She just glows with it. And not only does she bring the mindset of positivity towards business and people, but she has the ideas and the strategies and the expertise. So we're so thankful to have her here. She's the founder of Compass Sales Advisory. She works hands-on with small and mid-sized businesses, and she helps to build their sales engines. So if I can find where she's at, there she is. Let's put her in the stream. Let's see. There you are. Hey, Susan, how are you?
Hello. Brian, I loved your story about Mr. Herman. Thank you.
There's hope for all of us.
I think we all have one of those people that was in our corner cheering us on.
I needed a lot of those people, believe me, to get and survive childhood. Well, Tom, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, that's good. Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to give an offering and an invitation based upon your presentation earlier.
Yes.
If we do, you can hit me up on Venmo or PayPal. PayPal? I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was checking this. Man, anyway, Susan, it's so nice to see you again. If you could, just briefly, for those of you around who do not know you, can you just tell us about yourself and your business and really what you highlight?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the founder of Compass Sales Advisory, and as Brian said, my business is all about working with small and mid-sized businesses on growing their revenue. And I don't do that through training per se, as much as I do really getting my hands in the soup and working inside a business, working with the business owners, everything from the strategy to the people to the process to help them build that kind of infrastructure. So just a little bit about where I come from. I spent a lot of years on the corporate side of the world. I had a number of different executive roles, building and leading sales and broader global organizations. And I had a chance to be exposed to a lot of really great things that help big business tick, and a lot of things that big businesses do that get in their own way. And then I took a sharp turn in my career and worked in a small business helping them scale. And I got a huge education about the challenges of growing a small business and what it takes to actually grow a small business. And so it's a lot of fun for me to do what I do, because I feel like I'm able to straddle that fence and bring perspective about the good things that help large businesses that we can borrow from as we grow our own businesses, and in small and mid-sized businesses scale.
That's incredible. I think when you have that perspective and that experience that goes beyond textbooks or even degrees, what you learn in the real world. So another question for you, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite questions, because we like to dig a little below the resume and really get to the personality of a person we're talking to. So here it is. If you could have lunch with any one person in the world, not family member, not a friend, someone who's alive today, who would you choose and why?
What a great question. You know, if you had asked me that a few weeks ago, I think I might have said the beloved RBG, you know, what a pioneer. I think I would have to say Bill Gates. And not because of, you know, maybe what he is lesser known for, really. You know, he is now through, and maybe I should give the credit to his wife, the Gates Foundation and what they do. But they have really chosen to tackle some of the biggest and hairiest kind of problems there are. You know, education and global health and climate change, and try to figure out what are the real actions you can take that'll have, you know, outsized impact, you know, at a real fundamental level. And I think it'd be a fascinating conversation, because when I think about, you know, so many things, even down to just time management, figuring out what are the things that I can do that are going to have like the biggest impact. I think there'd be a ton to learn from him and what they've done and the way they've been able to move the needle.
That's a great answer.
He's one of my favorites too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a part of the Rotary Club. Actually, I'm the president of the North Suffolk Rotary Club, as you know, Susan. And Bill and Melinda, their foundation, has given millions of dollars toward the Rotary Foundation in eradicating polio across the globe. So, great answer.
Yeah.
Great answer. So, leads come before sales, right? We know that. You can't have a lead without a sale. What are some of the best practices that you have found just to get lead generation?
Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that I see businesses trip on, and it's maybe a precursor to your question, Tom, but really knowing who your audience is, or I call it your ideal customer. Maybe in marketing speak, you call it that, or you call it, your target customer, whoever that is. The customer that's going to get the absolute most value from what you do, you got to be really laser focused on who they are and what their problems are that you're going to solve. Because it's really hard to generate leads if you can't be laser focused about that. Because, when lead generation is done really well, the messaging and the communication is to that person, that business owner with that problem. And so that's where I see, lead generation, the more targeted and focused you can be about your messaging, but the people, that's who it's going to resonate with, is you can be laser focused on where you're going to be able to bring the most value. So being really clear about that and then turning that into a process, because a lot of people may not think of lead generation or of selling as a process, but it should be a process that's predictable, that you can evaluate and make changes as you need to. And in this day and age, there is a lot of automation that happens. There's a lot of marketing automation. There's some really great tools out there. And I think the real challenge is being personal in doing that in terms of lead generation. And that doesn't mean that it has to be a one-to-one connection each time, but bringing, personality and bringing some connection and some authenticity in the way that communication happens, I think is also incredibly important, because people are just inundated with messaging and social media, and making certain that it's laser focused and authentic, I think makes a huge difference.
And I love that. I think your answer, when you start with who that ideal avatar is, that target market, that's like the foundation of the rest of things. Without that first starting point, everything else will crumble. That's what we always teach. That's always number one step. So let's say that you've got that target market nailed down, and you're doing some automated things in terms of generating leads online, digitally, that type of deal. Okay, let's say you get a couple of dozen in at a time. What other ways have you found, whether it be through software or what have you, to qualify which leads are going to be most worth my time to follow up with, and those that might still be in the general demographic of what I'm looking for, but they're not qualified? What do you do to save yourself time from chasing after these unqualified leads?
So one key part of that, Brian, is knowing what questions to ask.
Okay.
Knowing what questions to ask to know whether they're going to be qualified or not. And there are different tools to do that. You can outsource that even. But knowing the questions to ask, and it kind of links back to what you were talking about before, that avatar that you spoke of. Because you need to be able to peel that onion back and continue to understand, if this person is the right demographic, if the pain that they have is a problem that you can solve, and if they have the right kind of sense of urgency to know, are they going to be compelled to take action, whether it's to buy, to enter whatever agreement that you're proposing. But you have to know what questions to ask, and then figure out the tools to do that, which can be, you can outsource almost like an inside salesperson. That's an activity that can be outsourced to help with that screening.
Right. You know, it's unique. Susan, you are in sales. We are in marketing. It's almost a finest of lines between the two. Sales is marketing. Marketing is sales. What are some of the ways that you have found that a company can actually align their marketing strategy with their sales?
Tom, I've worked in businesses that have done that really well, and I've worked in businesses that have done it less well.
That's good.
And I think, one of the keys to doing that is to think of them as really one team. I mean, they are the revenue team. So they're going to play in a different space in terms of, if you think about a buyer's journey toward buying something, there's several steps in that process. And marketing and sales are going to play in different zones, but they have to be so intimately aligned about the customer, about the pain that the customer has. And every bit as important is about the value that you bring to that customer and how you do that. Because gone are the days where marketing would do these things and then hand something off to sales. I mean, that process has to be incredibly seamless now, or it's a huge turnoff to a buyer. A buyer now spends far more of that journey probably engaging with marketing than they do with sales. And that's a shift from what you've seen in the past. But through that shift, it's even more important that there is this seamless integration between marketing and sales. I mean, think about even down to the language that they use, the way they talk about their product, their service, the value they deliver has to be integrated and seamless. Or it's a signal to a buyer that something's off. It's a signal that's not authentic. If there's this really distinct handoff between the two. So some of the ways to do that are have sales and marketing have common objectives. Certainly there will be specific sales metrics or marketing metrics, but there should be some common core objectives. Having regular meetings between the two, having, creating space and forum for communication between those two to create that sense of common purpose is really important to getting that kind of integration between the two.
And I love how you get down to the core value of just be authentic and stay genuine, because you're right. I mean, customers are not dummies. They can tell when somebody switches a message. You might have the marketing message and then you go to the fifth gear, the sales message.
Yeah.
And if they go on a line, it does seem artificial and fake.
Right.
And that puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
Right.
And people may not, somebody who's on the buyer side may not put their finger on what just happened, but it just, all of a sudden they start to retreat and they start to feel like something about this doesn't feel right to me.
So something that I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs do, let's say you've done your marketing just right and you got your sales process and your conversion event all figured out, and you've got someone that is a perfect target market and they seem interested and they respond, and then the communication begins, and then crickets for whatever reason. They just go radio silent. They ghost you for a while and you're like, did I say something? Did I do something? How do you follow up without being a huge pest? I sometimes struggle with that. Yeah. I want to be organized and I want to follow up, but I don't want to be a pest.
Right.
How do you answer that type of situation?
So I think everybody struggles with that, Brian. I mean, a lot of people struggle with that because follow-up takes a lot more time and effort now than it has in the past, because people are inundated. They're inundated. And it can take 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 times of reaching out to somebody to secure whatever the next step is. And while we're waiting in those 2, 3, 4, 5 times, our mind is telling us all of these other things about being a pest, and I don't want to bother them. But if you go back to where we started about your ideal customer and the business or the customer that you're going to bring the greatest value to, and your effort is in earnest to help them, I think that has to help your mindset, for one, in terms of that outreach and that follow-up, because you have an earnest belief in your product and your service and what you do. You're not being a pest. I'm earnestly thinking I can serve your business. So I encourage people, number one, make certain that your headspace is right on that first point. But you have to follow up 7, 8 times. You really do, and use different means. And I will tell you an unexpected secret. There's this old-fashioned thing called a telephone that, a lot of people have forgotten in this age of, I am going to book through my automated calendar and email campaign, and they have forgotten the art of picking up the telephone and calling and having a conversation, because I think that you would be surprised how often that is received well. But your goal, and this may sound counterintuitive, Brian, my goal is to get to know fast. Because if it's not a fit, if what I provide or you provide or a business provides to a potential client is not a fit, whether it's because of sense of urgency or lack of need or competitive best you surface that early. And sometimes that's the part of the conversation that people can feel the most uncomfortable about. But ideally, you want to be able to get clarity and get it as soon as you can.
Good. That's good wisdom, Susan. So, Brian and I have never considered someone a pest who sends us gift cards to barbecue and sweet tea. Because I'm telling you, we can, I'm from Suffolk, he's from Carolina. So those two together,
we can be bribed.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Susan, Brian and I both love to educate ourselves with all across the board, sales and marketing and design and web and all kinds of stuff. What are some resources that if someone's really interested in sales and the process and how to really build their teams and how to build their sales equity, what are some resources that you can recommend that we take a look at?
So for any scaling business, I recommend a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. Have you guys, I don't know if you've read that.
I'm familiar with this, yes.
It is a great, it's not a sales specific book, but a great book for businesses who are in the process of scaling, because it really helps businesses understand how to drive ownership and accountability into an organization and get everybody, pulling the wagon in the same direction. Huge value for any business that's trying to scale. From a sales specific standpoint, the Challenger Sale is a great book. It's an approach to selling that is really around being a resource to your customers. And I know that's something that you guys do incredibly well. But it is about how businesses and companies can adopt that mindset of being a resource and let that infiltrate everything from your messaging to your process to the types of people that you bring on board.
It's good stuff. I mean, I'm definitely going to look at those books, after we get off this live stream today. And I feel even with what we've discussed, it's just like the tip of the glacier, and there's so much under the surface that is still to be explored. So if someone wants to dig in a little deeper with you and find out more details, get some help, or what would you say would be the first step? Do you have anything that you can offer them to kind of take that first step down that pathway?
Sure. You could come to my website at www.thecompasssolutions.com. And there on the website is a place for you to take a free assessment. It's short, quick, but it will give you some feedback based on what your situation is from a sales standpoint. You'll get immediate feedback on some tips that you can and steps that you can take to immediately start to improve your sales. I'd also invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Susan W. Mann on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Feel free to connect, and I'd be happy to connect and have a conversation if there's something I can do to help.
And I will say, too, just so nobody is confused, we introduced you as Susan Mann, but I see on your Facebook name, it's Susan Matthew. So
I just noticed that my maiden name is Matthews. Absolutely. So that's why that shows up as Susan Matthews Mann.
And we've had the pleasure of working with your brother too, by the way.
Right.
What a great family.
That's good. What is your preferred method of contact? I know you mentioned the website and LinkedIn. Is that your preferred method of contact, Susan, if we want to reach out with you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is susan@thecomposssolutions.com. Email me.
Good. That's fantastic. Fantastic. This has been a fantastic time, Susan. And like Brian said, that's the tip of the iceberg. Sales is an ongoing process. I've been in, well, anybody who owns a business is in sales, no matter what you're doing. So, making widgets or designing websites, or you're in sales because what you have as an end user that needs to hear about that. And, at the Addison Group, we've got that same kind of process that we use. We call it brand discovery. Very much like what you were talking about with your laser focused, and what we found, something I wish we would have done 25 years ago. Brian, between the two of us, we've got 50 years of experience and 100 years of life. So, I mean, just to rein in our
share.
Yeah, you've got more experience than I do, that's for sure. But that process we call brand discover, and we call it the perfect avatar. Some people call it target market, the perfect person. But if you know exactly who you're talking to, you know what tone to use. If you understand their brand personalities, if you understand who they are, it's so much different because your confidence as a salesperson goes up because you're being laser focused on what your audience is.
And Tom, you mentioned the Addison Group, so people don't get too confused. That is a sister agency that we have. So we are Genie Jar Digital. We also have the Addison Group. Addison Group, I think, would probably focus historically more on traditional marketing, even though we can certainly do digital. Genie Jar Digital focuses on the digital side, but we can also do traditional. So that can be confusing to folks, but just want to make sure that's clear as well.
Absolutely.
Susan, again, we want to thank you for your time. I know you are a busy businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and I feel like I'm richer just from what you shared today, seriously. And I want to go back and watch this again and take some notes and take advantage of the resources that you mentioned. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here with us today. And we really appreciate you and the massive impact that you're making in the community and the ways that you volunteer. We've talked about that before. And just being a friend with you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
And we're going to let you go. Again, have a great day, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care, Susan. All right. Well, Tom, these guests, they never fail to impress me. And Susan brought the heat today.
She did. Yeah. I love surrounding myself with wise people because then I feel like I can gain some of that wisdom as well.
And I appreciate you throwing me under the bus about my age. Yes, this year I did turn the big 50, but just for transparency purposes, you're staring right at it as well.
I am. When I hear the numbers 50, I think about letting the rag top down so my hair can blow. So listen, don't let those
definitely showing your age.
Don't let those numbers fool you, man. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, before we go, Brian, I'd like to make an offer. During this time we talked about laser focusing, figuring out our process that we do at Genie Jar Digital is called Brand Discover. And this is a process that clients pay us a fee of $399 to do. And what that does, it asks a series of questions that is a deep dive into information on your company. And what we extract from that for you is a one-liner, your target audience or your typical customer avatar, your brand personality, a lead magnet, your bullseye product, a 3-step visual plan, getting inside your customer's head, how to work things together, customer journeys. This is something that we've put together that we sell to any company that wants to work with us. We do not do anything unless we have this because that's the foundational piece of marketing. And for those who are listening to it, can I give them $100 off of that?
Absolutely.
All right. If I can do that, if you'll go to geniejardigital.com/schedule, it'll tell you a little bit more about what I just described as far as brand discover, and go through the purchase process. Use the code 100 off, 100 off. And we'll take that fee from $399 to $299. And at the end of the day, that's a marketing strategy for you to get started. Love to offer that to anybody who is listening right now.
So that's geniejardigital.com/schedule.
Schedule. That's right. Get it in the book. Schedule it.
All right. Well, again, thanks everyone for watching today. We hope to be back really soon with some more expertise that can help you propel your business forward. We really do appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to comment here on the Facebook page, or you can contact us. You can find the contact information on our website as well. We're just here to help. We love to serve people. So again, until we meet again, thanks so much. Tom, appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks. Hey, if I turn like this, does it look like I'm looking at you, Brian?
It does. Yes.
Hey, you have something in your ear.
Oh, thank you very much. This ear right here. That's what we are. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye now.